In Australia today, the divide between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians has never been bigger, and with the childcare system continuing to fail Aboriginal communities, it seems the injustice of our Indigenous people will continue. Since Kevin Rudd's infamous 2008 apology speech, the rate of Indigenous children being placed in out-of-home care has doubled, and by 2036 will triple, according to a recent report. Yurubi Jaffa Williams, a 20-year-old proud Indigenous male from the Lardle tribe in Mount Isa, says these figures are shocking and represents a sense of anger that all Aboriginal people are experiencing today.
It's a mixture of anger, confusion, like why does this have to happen is the big question, I think. And it's just there in front of us, but it's like, why can't we do something about it? It's been normalised, I think.
Yurubi explains how it is because of this lack of dialogue and interaction with Indigenous Australians about Aboriginal issues that is causing these figures to rise.
How can you have a full-rounded perspective on the issue if you're not getting the perspective of the people that the issue is, it's about the Indigenous people. So get an Indigenous person talking about it. Like, it's simple as that. Like, that's probably the first thing I'd look to before anything else.
Dr. Catherine McFarlane, the director of the Centre for Law and Justice at Charles Sturt University, claims that it is Australia's policy history that has caused this continued rate to rise.
There's lots of different reasons, but intergenerational dispossession and intergenerational trauma or transgenerational trauma is a really big issue. And in my view, that comes about because many of the people who were removed from their families in the stolen generation, through the stolen generations, and who then were treated badly or were not really taught how to be parents themselves. And so the extended consequences also of removal and the shattering effect that gives to the whole community, that everyone's affected by somebody being taken away, that takes a lot of time to heal.
Dr. McFarlane also claims that there is an already pre-motive by the government when they deal with Aboriginal people, and puts forward the important notion that Indigenous people and organisations need to care for these children.
People see somebody as being Indigenous and attribute all these aspects to their lives or have all these assumptions without looking at the child as a child in their own right. You need Indigenous workers, you need carers from the same or similar backgrounds to the kids. You need kids to be cared for on country where possible in safe environments.
And although Yurubi was not placed in out-of-home care, he did go to an all-boys boarding school from the years 7 to 12 and explains just how much a toll it took on himself and his connection to his culture.
And then upon leaving that sort of environment where everything is so controlled, I obviously came to university and started to actually live my life in a way that I could, and I realised that it wasn't, like, looking back, it really wasn't the best place for me to be to experience and express my culture.
Professor Nina Burridge of the University of Technology Sydney says enough is enough and calls on the government to implement change, with Aboriginal voices at the forefront of this discussion.
When are we going to take on the responsibility for past actions and actually make some concrete changes here historically that's going to say to Aboriginal people, we value what you do and we value your say in what happens in our communities, in our country. If you're going to make change, it's got to come from the grassroots and it's got to be implemented with Aboriginal people as key advisors.
Dr. McFarlane claims that it is the abuse and neglect Indigenous children are facing that is causing more and more Aboriginal children to be brought up in a harmful and dangerous environment.
Unless we repair the out-of-home care system, so when we do take children, we have to make them safe too, not subject to abuse and neglect within the system that's meant to protect them. And my research shows that that is actually what happens to a significant minority of kids, is that they're treated appallingly or neglectfully by the state once they're removed. How do you expect them then to be able to look after their own kids?
Dr. McFarlane goes on to explain that if nothing is done to stop this problem at the root level, these figures of Indigenous children in out-of-home care will not only progress, but become much worse.
So unless you fix the system where you put the kids to be safe, you can't stop the next ones and the next ones. They will keep coming back. And I think that's where we need to be focusing attention.